Hello everyone, this is Andreas Birk speaking, one of the moderators of our today's event. It's now 5 o'clock in Central Europe, and yeah, depending on where you are at a different point in time today. Yeah, let us just wait for a few more seconds, say 1 or 2 minutes possibly, because the room is still filling, so that we can welcome as many people as possible when we start with the actual workshop. So there are still a few more participants joining, and we will start in a second. So hello everyone, welcome to our today's Vivid TQA and Micro Focus Practitioner workshop on DevOps with ALM Octane. My name is Andreas Birk. I'm one of the moderators of our today's event. And Andreas, can you please switch to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. Okay, and it's my pleasure to welcome Andreas Wittmann of Micro Focus as our main speaker today. On September 29th, Andreas gave us a very, very interesting and exciting scenario demo on DevOps with ALM Octane. He went through a very interesting usage scenario of ALM Octane, and there were really plenty of questions that we couldn't cover all at that event. So the decision was to set up today's practitioner workshop so that we have more time to elaborate more on detailed aspects of the things that Andreas showed us. And of course, we are open to new questions from your side, from all the participants that might have popped up since that presentation of Andreas on October 29th. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will later be available for replay from the Vivid Worldwide website. And yeah, just a few more organizational notes before we go on with the actual discussion. My name is Andreas Birk of Software Process Management. I'm one of the co-leaders of the Vivid Testing, Quality, and Application Lifecycle Management Special Interest Group, TQA-SIG. I'm joined by Michael Thiere from Expleo Group, and in the preparation also Carsten Neise from T-Systems has collaborated, but unfortunately he cannot be available today on short notice. And I will give you this introductory moderation and close the meeting later on. And during the actual discussion, Michael Thiere will do the main part of the moderation. And also a big thank you to Iris Burrs and Terry Serrallo from Vivid Worldwide. They have, as usual, and so often, again, this time supported us greatly in the organizational preparation and setup. Thank you very much for that. A few housekeeping notes. On your GoToWebinar control panel, you see a little pane as shown here for questions. please type in your questions, the one that may arise freshly today, and of course also those that you might have had already during the demo presentation on October 29th. We will have a close look on this on your list of questions, and then call you. And if you will be prepared, it would be great if you can give can pose your question on the audio channel, and we will unmute you. Please, when we call you, please raise your hand in GoToWebinar to indicate us that it's okay for you to be unmuted and be on the audio channel. Okay, having said that, yeah, it's my pleasure to hand over to Andreas Wiedmann of Micro Focus. And yeah, I think you will present yourself briefly.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Andreas.
Okay.
So my name is Andreas Wiedmann. I'm a technical consultant at Micro Focus, and I'm, as I said last time, I'm taking care of everything around test management, test automation, load and performance testing. There are interesting parts in mobile testing, service virtualization, and I think, as I mentioned last time, and as you probably saw in the webinar, my hobby is DevOps. So what we want to do today is more or less answering most of the questions you have. We still have a few questions, I guess, from last time, which we can answer, which we have here. I also have the environment from last time, so if you're interested, we still can go into the product, into Octane. I have the connection to UFT in order to show a few things. So whatever you'd like to see, and if you have specific questions regarding maybe your environment, how do you want to deploy it in any way, feel free to ask any questions. I would be great if we also could have a discussion. I think which is more interesting than rather just me presenting to you, and also have the same slides as last time. So in order we can also go into and show the process on a high level again. If you have questions for the integrations maybe. So this is a great thing, I think, a good thing for you in order to get some more information, how the demonstration, the demo was built, how it was done. And yeah, feel free to answer any kind of questions. So Michael will, if you put the questions in the panel, Michael will call you, and then we can have a short discussion. So so now I'd say think about some questions, put them in the panel. In the meantime, I go over on the list and I will pick a few questions which I find interesting in my view, and would start answering the questions. And in the meantime, you can post them in there. So then I'm not quite sure which ones we definitely answered the last time, but one question we get at some point is there was a question about, for example, Power BI, if Power BI can be integrated in with Octane. The answer is yes. And it's done through the interface, it's OData, and through the OData interface, I think in our help environment on the Micro Focus page, there is an example how you connect actually the Power BI to Octane. So more or less, there is a list of consumers and providers. So Octane is the provider for AData. Power BI from Microsoft is the consumer, and so you more or less link them together. And if you like, you can follow the example in order to build some nice reports in that regard. Then another question is if we are here with integrations. there is, I don't think we have a full list regarding integrations. There are many integrations that you also can find from the help side, but in general, I think for the integrations, Octane has a very, very powerful REST API. So using REST API, you can integrate a lot of different solutions using the REST API interface if there isn't yet another way like a plugin like we use it in Jenkins and so on. Let me go through some more questions. I always get the question regarding Jira. There are many ways to integrate Jira. So I believe Octane is superior to Jira, but that's a different discussion, I think. First thing is there's a way to synchronize it. Requirements and defects. That's a very simple way in order to synchronize using MF Connect, synchronizing both of the products. Then you have them in with the same content. Of course, the synchronizer is always something where you might not be 100% up to date, but you can have a short time frame, a short interval in order to do that. That's one part. What you also can do, there is a plugin from Micro Focus into Jira, which gives you the status of a specific test. So you can even have it with a plugin from Octane in Jira to show you the status of a specific test, for example. So do we have any questions yet? Don't be shy.
Yeah,
yes,
there are some. Okay.
We have some questions.
Very good.
But nobody want to turn on her microphone. Okay, we have one question. Can we integrate GitHub to ALM Octane without Jenkins? How can we do it?
Okay, so depending the question is what you want to do with GitHub. If you want to, I'm not too familiar with the functionality of GitHub. But I think you will need Jenkins in order to execute your build and pull the sources from GitHub. Michael?
Okay, yes. Sorry.
Okay. It was quiet.
I was mute. Sorry. We have another question. When using Azure DevOps to run tests and the test hangs, have you ever been able to kill a test so it does not freeze remote with the hosts? I think he ran a test with Azure DevOps. It's from Randy, yes.
Perhaps, Randy, do you want to comment on that? If so, you please indicate by raising your hand and go to webinar, then we can unmute you. So you can.
Okay, Randy, I unmute you.
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, Randy, we can hear you.
Okay, when we're running Azure DevOps, we have a number of tests running out of there. And it seems like if a test hangs, it renders the remote host useless, and everything else behind it won't run. So we have six remote hosts that they can in a pool, and then when one remote host hangs, we only have 5, and then another one hangs, we got 4. We got a lot of issues with that. So I'm not quite sure how, because we have to reset the remote host, and then hopefully, it picks up from there. But all the scheduled runs in DevOps just doesn't, they don't execute. So there's a number of them that we have to run or reset or reschedule.
Okay, so what kind of, how do you connect to Azure DevOps, and what kind of tests they are? UFT tests or
Yeah,
unit
they're
tests?
UFT tests.
Okay.
They're from ALM. Well, they can be from ALM QC or ALM Octane. So right now they're running from ALM QC, but we're going to set it up in Octane as well. But once they start running, it's just a hodgepodge of, you know, okay, this one's hanging, we have to go reset that host, and that one's hanging, we have to go reset that host and start everything back up. But I'm not sure if there's a way inside of Octane or inside to continue the test or to kill the session or.
No, not that I know, but you using Jenkins or which is your test executor? Because Octane is not the test executor or the trigger to run it.
We used to use Jenkins, but now we got rid of it and we use Azure. So there's an ALM, an ALM add-in for Azure to run tests as well.
Usually what happens if you should be able actually to kill the session, and then UFT should fall down as well. This is actually how I do it. If my test case hangs on my Windows machine, and if I stop it on Jenkins, and for my in this example, my UFT closes down as well. But the question is, the reason is, why does it stop? Yeah? This is the other one of the things that we probably should ask. Yeah, but usually, if you stop it, then UFT should close. And of course, you can give the condition based on when you want to close the session. Yeah? But given on a time interval, if you get an error, whatsoever. But I agree. If you don't stop the session, you have probably it will hang. Yeah.
I was trying to kill the session remotely. So you're talking about just putting it within your function to say if it's not done in X amount of minutes, kill it.
Yeah, in Jenkins, if I built a pipeline, and of course I can give a time limit for it, and then I would probably run. I would stop it at a certain time. This is, I think, is a try actually to do it. I'm not quite sure what the reason is for the host actually to freeze, if this would be a solution or not. I think this is probably something we had to try. Right. I'm just brainstorming. Sometimes I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's we used up all of our licenses and it's waiting, or there's another test running and it's waiting. So it's kind of various things. And then if one of the functions that's supposed to log into a web service fails, you know, I guess you're right. You could just use scripting to exit the process.
Well, at some point you have to probably just do a hard exit, given because there is nobody who can evaluate it. What's happening? Do we still have to wait longer? Did it fail? And whatsoever. So for UFT, if you cannot, if UFT is still running in the script, and it just the web service is not answering, it will simply go over it. Yeah, and it will go through. The question is, why does it freeze at some point? If it's freezing, it probably you have to you shut down the connection to the host, and then usually I think UFT closes down as well, if I remember correctly. But freezing is always something not that nice. I agree.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We have a question from Milan Danrel. What is the best use of quality stories?
Oh, this goes down.
Wait, Milan
is prepared, yeah.
Yes, I could unmute your microphone. Okay, Mia, now you can speak.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, hi Milan.
So hi, Andres. So in Octane, when you're doing more of the agile or even hybrid approach to testing, it's not very well documented the purpose of quality stories. In your experience, do you use quality stories, and what do you typically use them for?
Well, this goes a little bit to the Agile manifest, I guess. Yeah, so a lot of theory. I'm not the best theoretical guy.
Okay.
So the quality story does not have all the specifications and all the functionalities of a normal user story. So what I use the quality stories, for example, if I don't have to do any kind of coding connecting test cases, for example. So I just can use it as a work item. So I need a quality story, for example, to install a database or set up a server or something like this. So I just have a quality story. I can put some story points on it, and then I move it through my Kanban board. So that would be one way, for example, actually to do it.
What is your thoughts on then? So thank you. That's good. So what is your thoughts then on comparing that approach to, let's say, just using phases for a feature? So as you in your example, if you say I need to build out a database as part of my quality story, what do you see the merits of that versus, let's say, putting in a separate phase under the in progress meta phase to say build database or something like that, or provision database or prepare environment or something like that?
The meta phase or the phase applies to all user stories. Yeah,
yes.
And so, for example, if you have a complex architecture, complex application, you only have one database. Yeah, you have maybe an application server, and then of course you build the code, and you don't have always a phase building or installing the database. You have it only once, so it's one item. Therefore, I would not see this as a phase. I would see this as an item which I have to drag through my Kanban board at some point.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, have you seen the raised hand by Marlene?
Yes, Marlene, I see it. Marlene, I couldn't unmute.
Okay, obviously she wants to comment to this discussion, I suspect.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Okay, now.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the quality stories and my understanding of them and how we use them in our organization. So one of the things that we enforce is that tests themselves should always be associated to a user story or a requirement or a quality story, so that we would never have a test run that is an orphan, if you will. So when we have our user stories, obviously there would be tests associated with those user stories, but there's often a need to test things outside of the specific user stories. Maybe it's regression testing, or some known issues that we want to test that weren't specific to a user story, and that's when we're creating a quality story. So if we need to do some regression testing, or if we know there's an area that we want to test, we would create a quality story for that specific testing itself and say, as a QA person, we know that we want to test X in the software to ensure the quality is acceptable to the user, that kind of thing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like it if we get into a discussion. That's really great. Okay, so I see one question regarding the GDPR content pack.
Okay.
From
yes,
Juan.
From Jan.
Yeah, so perfect. So I'd like to invite my colleague Dirk Hederich now, because he's the guy who built the GDPR content pack, and this is one of his favorite things. He actually does it outside of his work life. So he often, if I see him, he's online over the weekend and just updates it. And the GDPR content pack in the past it really grew huge. So he did some additional stuff for some regulations in California, some specific regulations down in South Africa, for example, and all these kinds. He tries to integrate all of those regulations around the globe, and he has in the meantime quite a huge amount of customers, I'd say, in order to who download it and actually are using it. So you want the GDPR content pack into Teams. This is one thing I do not quite understand, because you have the GDPR content pack is actually built for regulations which you actually should test. So where's the use case for Teams?
No, I think he means integration from Octane into Teams, so that I could send a task to the team chat.
Ah, okay. So sorry for not actually understanding it 100%. So what we have is, I think we do have the integration from Octane into Skype, and I think Teams is already done or will come in the short future. So you have those integrations as well. You can actually see who's online, who's offline, and have that kind of integration in there. I hope that helps a little bit.
Okay, then we have another. Oh, Scott. Yes, Scott, that's the next question. You are unmute. No, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, Scott, now you can speak.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Hopefully they won't take too long. Some of them, we're kind of new to this. They're more related to the development process. We understand the agile stuff going, generating your epics features, user stories and whatnot. But one of our guys has a question about what attributes are critical or important for tracking progress within that development cycle, like story points, or do we track by release, or et cetera? Like, what are some best practices for tracking those?
Okay, so Michael, I think we have to do some workshop regarding agile. I think that would be one other good thing maybe to do. It's not the thing is the agile manifest actually says the team is organizing itself. That's one of the core parts. It does. So usually story points are used for doing an estimate how big a user story actually is. Yeah, how much effort do you actually need? And then after 3-4 sprints, you usually get to an agreement within the team how many story points you can actually deliver in one sprint, and how do you size the story points and estimate the story points per user story, for example. This usually takes 2, 3, maybe 4 sprints for a team to adjust to that, to find that actually out. This gives you the estimate about the velocity, about the amount of user stories, features you can actually deliver within a sprint. And then, of course, you do an overall planning for your release. So how many releases do you want to have in a quarter, for example? So usually, so what we do, we have for Octane, we do, of course, we develop Octane in an agile fashion as well. So we have one on-premise release every quarter. So every 3 months, we have a release for all our customers who are using Octane on-premise, and we have a release every month for our SaaS, so for our cloud environment. And that's, of course, the overall roadmap, as we can say. So we have our releases ordered, and of course, then based on that one, we assign the user stories to those releases, and of course to those sprints, which are usually two week sprints. We put that in, and based on the different teams, based on their velocity, of course, those user stories get assigned, or to put it in the correct wording, the teams take the user stories and put it in their sprint and give the commitment in order to deliver it. So this is a little bit of theory, how it's actually done. Practically, sometimes it looks a little bit different, as you can imagine.
Sure, understood. Okay, so in regards to the sprint, so other than the sprint burn up and burn downs in your dashboard, are there other metrics in Octane to track a sprint progress?
Yes, you have quite some others. So you mentioned burn down, burn up chart. Of course, you have the velocity per team, for example, and what you also have is let me see. I don't think I have my graph is really good. Let me check. Where is mine? There it is. Here we go. So let me see. Dashboard. I think it was this template. I hope I find it right away. So here, this is the new dashboard for the release, and for example, what you also have is a control chart. And you can see how long a specific user story was in a specific state, for example, in order to see, are you actually making progress? Are you better than last time or less? You have what about the features, how long they are in a specific phase. So this new graph, for example, and I think this is online on our SaaS platform already since, I think, Sunday. You can have all those different release management and therefore, of course, velocity and tracking graphs as a template for a dashboard.
Okay,
and
that's good.
And I think this gives you the insight in order to compare, to track, to optimize. And I think this is what the basic functionality is to optimize for further releases and further sprints.
Okay. Two more, I guess. One, we have a lot of drive-by taskings, right? We have a lot of work items that come in that are not directly project related. I think maybe that question just got answered. What's the best entity to use in Octane to track those kind of drive-by taskings that are not necessarily related to epics or features that we have to plug in to track our time? I mean, would that be a quality story, or do we track those as kind of like a defect work item kind of thing?
Well, a defect is a defect, actually. So if it fits the purpose of a defect, why not? And if you're happy with using a defect and comfortable with it, why not using a defect? It's not written in that you have to use a certain entity to do that. It's the solution is to give you the best fit actually to do that. And of course, the product is built based on the Agile manifest in a way and on SAFe, and it looks towards those in a way framework and guidelines. But it's of course you can use it, please, to your best fit. Probably I would use it as a quality story. That's one part. If you have it in a more complex, if you want to track code, if you want to track test cases and all this kind of stuff, maybe it's a user story. Why not? And you don't have to actually fit it to you can have a ongoing or you have a feature which just does the housekeeping stuff. Yeah, you can do that as well. It is ongoing.
Okay.
You know?
Right. Sure.
Those are multiple ideas actually how you can track it, and there is no manual says you have to do it exactly like this. That's, I think,
okay.
The main idea.
And I have one for enhancements. Like basically for enhancements, would the best thing be to write them in as a? I mean, I know an enhancement's not a defect, but would you input an enhancement as a defect, or would that go directly to, say, a user story?
Well, an enhancement itself, I would say it's a user story. This is my interpretation, but somebody else might have a different one. Yeah, I would interpret a defect that a functionality is not doing actually what it's supposed to do, and an enhancement is implementing further functionalities. Therefore, it goes in as a user story. It gets prioritized in the backlog, and once it's turned and once it's up for the highest business value, you actually take it and implement it. So this is my interpretation of Agile, but it might be.
Right.
I don't think it's completely wrong, but people that are actively working in that environment might have a little bit of different view.
Yeah, no, understood. That makes sense. And one last, is there just a basic, do y'all have maybe a roadmap or a timeline of some of the DevOps features that are coming up?
We don't have it publicly, but of course we can arrange something with our PMs and give you roadmaps and ideas what we are working on.
Okay, we'll probably contact our representative for that then.
I think that's the best, your best contact to do that, and they will have the contacts to the PMs, and then we actually do that regularly with our customers. I do it as a pre-sales myself with my customers, and either it goes through the sales rep or it goes through the pre-sales. I think that's your best contact actually.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
So
we have another question from. Yes, we have a question from Milan. Milan, do you want to unmute? Okay, Milan is unmute.
Yes, thank you. Hey, Andres. This is a kind of obscure question. So with regards to the quality module, when we have common tests and we common tests amongst, let's say, different modules or even cross different features, and we need to create test suites, let's say, for different features, do you recommend building those test suites by adding existing tests or duplicating the tests, because they in effect will give you slightly different metrics?
It depends what you want to see and what you want to do. It depends. I know it's a silly answer, I know. Usually I would say if it's the same test case and you can actually use the same test case every time, and you don't have too much variations, and your table is actually enough, yeah, to and use the parameters, I'd say yes, of course, link it, because that's the whole idea of the quality module, yeah, to have it reuse as much as you actually can, because if you need to change something and you have 5 duplicated test cases, of course you have to go in all 5 test cases and change it. And this is what we actually don't, what we want to achieve in not actually doing that, rather than having it one place and do it there, and then and have it then optimized in a way.
Well, maybe I give you maybe some more context, and I agree with you there in a general sense. So if I've got whether it's in the backlog or whether it's in the quality module, if I have 2 separate features, right? One that's part of an earlier release and one that's part of a next release, and for testing those features, the test case of, let's say, performing an installation, you know, is slightly different with slightly different instructions. So to me, that suggests that we would not leverage the existing test, rather than we would build or duplicate the test and enhance it for any change in the application or change in the feature.
Yes, use the versions.
Well, in a test suite, yes, I'm aware of versions, but I think I haven't seen in a test suite where you can specify which version of the test you can use.
Yes, in a test, you can use it in a test run.
No, in a test suite.
In a test suite, I don't think you can. When you when you plan the test, you can define which version you want to use
of the test.
And you can link the version of the test to the release. Let me check if I see it. It's always something if you didn't prepare exactly the answer for that question, you have to look at it sometimes. But let me quickly check. So I just opened one. I'm not quite sure if something is behind it. So yes, I do. So as you can see, I have a few steps in here, and I have my versions. Now let's see what my versions show exactly. As you can see, I have different versions. I can compare them. Let's see what we actually had. I even have so you can see this was my original version. This was my version, which is the current one. And I can set in the back, let's go back into the view, and I can set the release here, for which release I want to use that specific version.
Got it. Okay.
So this would be an idea, for example, if you have variations in your releases and you have a slightly different setup, then you can use the versions and link the actual test version to your to a specific release. So whenever you start that release, it will pull per default that revision of the test case.
So
I think that might solve it.
Okay. However, so one follow-up to that example, and I think that's great. I didn't think of that. So from a validation standpoint, if I've got the tests need to be validated before they're approved. If you close up this this dialog here that you're showing, and you go to the details tab for the test, it does not show me which version of the test it is, does it?
No, not here. The version of the test is if you plan it.
Yes.
Then you can say which release, and then of course you can choose the version here. Yeah. So version
the
from
version
release.
from release.
Yeah.
Can you click on the version from release field there?
Here it is. Yeah. It says the release.
Yeah.
So now I would assume it takes the old one and then it tests this release, and then you can go in here. And then of course you match it, or you can use the old release and match it against the new one.
And if you plan, then you can inspect the steps. I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So let's see. So this one is the planned one. So this is live. I didn't plan it. I have no idea what's happening right now. So let's see.
Okay.
How many steps we get? Yeah, and we get just 3. You see. So we took it from the link from the release link to 2.2. And we didn't get 4 checkpoints, we just got 3.
Got it. Okay.
So if we plan it, this is how
that helps. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you have to try. Play a little bit with it if it helps, but this could be an idea how to do it.
Yeah, we've been wrestling with sort of an unconventional use of Octane in the way that our releases and features and modules are set up. So these kinds of topics are a little bit different than your typical single product kind of perspective. But thanks.
Multiple ways to do it. Okay, Michael.
Okay, we have another question from Wendy. Wendy, do you want to unmute your micro?
I'm back.
Okay.
I actually have 2 questions, but the first one just has to do with an integration question. If I have a monitor inside of App Dynamics that's triggered, can I have that sent to Octane as an issue.
Mm.
And
Well,
I'd like to trigger additional tests on top of that monitor. I could build more monitors in AppDynamics, but we already have a suite of tests that can run that we've built already. So I don't see, having to reinvent the wheel.
okay, so what kind of tests do you have?
Well, let's say we could do something like a PI test where data is flowing between applications. We do it inside of SAP. So, so if AppDynamics monitor triggers a failure or a flow disruption, can that issue be sent to Octane to track it inside of that issues module? Or because we don't want issues tracked in more than one place, we just want them all in one place. So is there an API or integration with AppDynamics with Octane?
I'm not aware that there already is an integration, but Octane has a REST API, which is well documented. So what you could do, you could, whenever you find an issue in AppDynamics, you trigger the REST API of Octane and create that issue.
Okay, so
that would be the idea.
Okay, so and then
it's you can test it. It's there is a Swagger integration in Octane, so you can actually try your REST API URL in order to test that it actually creates that issue and how does it create it in that way. So you can plan, try, and play with it before you actually put it in your application. Yeah? So I think that's a nice integration in order to do that and in order to develop it. Yeah? Of course, you can use Postman as well. Yeah? Some people prefer that one. But that's definitely something you can, which is fully supported. Yeah, I think I already built some kind of integration in order to generate my defects from something else. I didn't use AppDynamics for that case.
My second question has to do with it's at a kind of a high level. We haven't switched to Octane yet, but if I go from ALM to Octane, can I just do I no longer need ALM QC or ALM in its old form? Can I do everything in Octane that I used to do in ALM QC?
I'm tempted to say yes, but Octane is a little bit different than ALM. The goal is definitely to have the same functionality, but it's not one-to-one. No? So from Octane has a broader perspective, a broader set of features because it supports the complete development lifecycle in it with the backlog, the team backlog, and so on. The requirements module is not as strong as it is in ALM. There are still some features that are in ALM that are not yet in Octane. And one other thing which you will find out, but I'm not quite sure if you're using it, there is no execution engine, no test lab within Octane that you have in ALM. So in ALM, you can start UFT test cases out of ALM. You don't need anything else. For Octane, in order to run UFT test cases, you need Jenkins, TeamCity, Bamboo, for example, some kind of engine that actually drives those test cases. So the whole idea of the integration, the infrastructure, the ecosystem is a little bit different in Octane. It goes a little bit more into a modern infrastructure rather than a monolithic how we used to do it in the past years. But depending on what you want to do, I think Octane will fit I'd say 90% of the purpose with ALM. And of course,
Okay.
it has more features in that regard.
So you said there's no test lab inside of Octane?
No, not
And
that
then-
specific tab with test lab. You would do it in Octane. I would do it in a different approach. For example,
so the add-on to DevOps, the ALM add-on to DevOps, would that allow the same functionality as Jenkins? Because we would run Jenkins tests from ALM, but because we got rid of Jenkins and added the add-on module for Azure DevOps, we're running them now out of Azure instead of Jenkins. So if the test, can we store the tests in Octane so Azure can see them and run them?
No. The UFT test cases? No, the UFT test cases usually go in. I use Git. You can of course use GitHub. You can, I think, TFS, for example. So the test cases are stored outside of Octane.
Okay.
And it gives you the additional benefit of having a version control system. Like with Git TFS, you can really do the differences and all this kind of stuff, which was not that well done with ALM. You have more functionality now.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, some more questions?
We have information from Milan. And Marlena is, no, Marlena is not raising. Yes, she's raising your hand. You unmute yourself. Oh. I think she didn't want to speak.
There we go.
Okay.
I was muted
okay,
by
now.
you too. I was just going to make a comment on the last one. We have completely switched to Octane from ALM QC, and we're actually happier with Octane than we were. We like it a lot. And the only thing that I would say is you have to be willing to adjust your processes a little bit. So, there are certain things that you will change the way you do things a little bit, but as long as you're open to that, it certainly is possible to replace the system entirely. So that was just my comment.
Thank you. I see it similarly, but I'm a little bit more cautious.
Oh, absolutely. And everything you said was spot on. Like you do have to make some adjustments for sure. But I will say that we were using ALM as the execution and the lab for our UFT automation. We were quite unhappy with the stability of it. And since we've gone to a Jenkins model, we've had some struggles, with the plugin and stuff like that, but we've really got it into a place now where we're really happy with our lab and the functionality that, we've got and the ability to run, a lot of tests. Like we're talking, we'll kick off, 12 hours worth of testing at a time and have it run overnight unattended, on multiple servers. So we're really getting to where we want to be now.
Great.
Okay.
Am I still unmuted? This is Randy again.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, on your comments, when you converted from ALM QC, are you just storing your tests out on a file share and pulling them in differently inside of Jenkins, or?
So what we're doing is we actually have an Azure repository. And so everything gets stored in an Azure DevOps Git repository. And so we're using the Git integration piece, and we're using Jenkins as well. So, basically we're integrating UFT to Git, and then we're using Jenkins as that build agent.
Okay.
So it's a little complex, but it works really well. And like what he was saying, the nice thing is having that version control. So if you ever screw up anything, every single commit is in there and you can go back to any certain point. We're able to do some branching now, you know, which we couldn't do in the past. So it's really slick.
Okay, thank you, because that was one of the biggest concerns about where is the test lab, the history, the
And you
test
know,
sets.
there is two, they just introduced, we're on SaaS, so we're on the most current versions. They did just introduce where you can actually keep your repository in ALM if you wanted to keep that ALM piece. And there is a way that you can run your tests out of ALM and inject the results into Octane if you don't want to do that whole test lab in the Octane, you know, format. So that is an option for people that don't want to go, you know, the other way. But, you know, I definitely recommend going with the Get Jenkins way because it's so much better.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Currently we answered all questions,
Perfect.
I think. Okay, thank you.
And we're just on time. Some more? Was there a question?
So I think we would have time for one or two brief questions and brief answers. Let's just wait a second if something still comes in. It doesn't look like. So yeah, it has been a great hour. So yeah, so then yeah, let's if there's no other comments, no other questions, let's now start closing the session. Andreas, would you be so kind and switch on the presentation with the last slide, or the one with last slide, please?
Sure.
I thank you, and I will say a big thank you to all of you. I think it has been a really great engagement into the discussion, and I very, very much liked how we openly discussed and that you shared all your experiences. So thank you very, very much for your participation. And of course, also a very big thank you, Andreas Wiedmann, for making this possible and all your, I think, also very valuable, very, very valuable answers. Yeah, as we announced in the beginning, this event has been recorded. You will, in 2 or 3 days, I think, you will receive a link. And if you want to deep dive into some of these things, feel free to listen into the recording. And when you leave this webinar, there will be a brief survey popping up. And we would really be very grateful if you can leave us a comment how you found this kind of event, how you found this format of discussion. And yeah, we will do our best to serve you well in the future from the visit. Having said that, I wish all of you a great day, great evening, depending from where you have participated. And most of all, stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.